welcome everybody to the May Stronger Together Get Together. And we've got some lovely familiar faces and we've got some new faces, so welcome. Really glad that you could join us today. It's going to be a great session. And gosh, here we are in May already. And I thought it was rather a good idea to perhaps invite Tory to our May session because we've just finished a financial year. And it would be really good to get into a great position this financial year, get our heads around our numbers, knowing our numbers, of course, and the story that our numbers tell us is really, really key. And I really do wonder how many of us actually do know our numbers to that extent. So I love numbers. I've been thinking about this morning. I always do a little bit of, well, quite a lot of prep actually before these sessions and sort of get my head into the zone. And I realised I really love numbers. I always have really loved numbers. And I used to grow radishes, and my mum used to sell them at the WI market, and I used to find that really satisfying just to get that money coming in and getting that pocket money to go on holiday and stuff. But I started work in Lloyds Bank in Glastonbury when I was 16. I hated the all-girls school I went to, started working in Lloyds Bank. So I used to see shopkeepers come in with all their coins and their notes and actually pay it in. And in those days, the bank manager actually was an advisor and could actually help businesses. But I also saw businesses bust, of course, and that was always really sad. But the relationship with money, I think, started then. And then I went to work for a merchant bank, and we did foreign currency loans, and the interest rates were so high and people were going boom and bust. It was insane. And then I majored in accountancy and finance in my international business degree. So I've always followed this number thing, and I do really like numbers. And now what I do is I give business owners headspace to be more creative, to reduce stress, and all of that is wonderful from the mental health perspective, which is of course where we are this week. But I also help business owners reduce their costs and increase their revenues. So money and numbers and finances is all really key and integral to what I do. And I really love Xero, and I love being on top of my transactions. I'm in Xero all the time. But yet, at the end of the month, that final figure is still a bit of a surprise to me, which is awful. And I just thought, how many of us are there out there that actually, we're on top of what's sort of coming in, we're on top of the pipeline, we make a decision based on, what the return on investment will be of something that we need to spend. And yet we get to the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year, and it's like, oh, that's a nice figure. Oh, that's not quite such a good figure. Why is that? So I thought I would invite Tory here today to help us understand the story that our numbers are telling us. And Tory has been a guest on so many of these events. It's absolutely wonderful to invite her back. And there's always some nuggets of absolute gold that she shares. And Tory is that very rare breed of accountant. And I'm sure she won't mind me saying that actually is so personable and down to earth. And I think everybody falls a little bit more in love with Tory after she's done a presentation because she just brings things to life. So for those of you who don't know Tory went to Oxford University. Tory lives in the Oxford area, and she owns and manages Panthera Accounting, and they specialise in helping small businesses with their accounts. So she runs a successful business herself, and she helps small business owners. So really, there's nobody better really to invite here today. So I'm very pleased that you're back with us today, Tory. So thank you. And I'd like to start off by getting a bit of a feel for the people who are in the room. And I thought maybe we, instead of doing a poll, maybe we could just put our hands up. But who here today is product based, or whose product is a tangible product?
Oh,
yep, 3, 4, okay, and the rest is service based. Okay, who has staff? Okay, 3 or 4. Okay, thank you. Does everybody use software, or some people are still using spreadsheets? Software, hands up for software. And of those that are using software, who uses Xero? Okay, cool. Who does their own accounts and who doesn't? Who does their own accounts?
I do.
I hope you do, Tory.
I know
So,
quite a few
yeah.
accountants who don't. Some accountants get other people to do it for them because it's really hard to do your own books. We're like cobblers and shoes.
Yeah,
it always gets left
well,
to
that's
last
true.
minute.
Okay, and who feels that they are on top of their accounts? Who feels that if they were in Dragon's Den, well done, Nikki, wouldn't expect anything else. If they were in Dragon's Den and Theopathetus was there asking questions about your numbers, who, hand on heart, would be able to go, yeah, I'm cool with that, I'm okay with that? About a third. Excellent. Good. I think that sets the scene quite nicely, Tory. Gets a bit of a feel for who's in the room and how we're all feeling about our accounts. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Tory to share her knowledge with us.
Thanks so much, Julia. It's really lovely to be back. It's really lovely to be back here and not just talking about furlough and bounce back schemes, which seems like that has been a lot of the story of last year. So I have got a lot that I want to share with you guys. I will try really hard to keep it concise, but do chip in if you've got questions. I'm always happy to do that as we go along. And I'm going to start out today's presentation. I've got some slides. Julie, can I just check that I can share my screen okay? And we'll give it a try. If you wouldn't mind just telling me if you are seeing slides on your screen or if you're seeing presentation.
Yeah, we're seeing Panthera accounting, doing, done, do it. To do.
Get back to business. Fabulous. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to whiz through because I don't want to have to go short too much on the finance stuff. So today's talk is called Get Back to Business. We're really thinking now about how we get, after what's been a really tricky 12 months for just about everyone in the room, I'm sure, what do we need to do now to get ourselves back into business with our finance heads on? So that's me. If you need to get hold of me, my phone number and my email address is there, and I'm always happy to chat to people. I'll share the slides or I'll ask Julia to share them when we're done. So don't worry too much about taking notes as we go through, because we'll let you have these. And I've got a few other giveaways at the end as well that we can send out to you. So just keep your eye out for those as we go through. So my thought for the day, I always start my presentations with a thought for the day, and today's thought is a rising tide lifts all boats. And the reason that I've chosen this to reflect on is that some of us have been through some very different sorts of things over the last 12 months. Some of us have been super busy with our businesses and haven't had any time to think. Some of us have been furloughed for the whole year. Some of us are seeing green shoots and we're looking forward to opening our doors, and other people are still struggling to see how their business is going to recover. Some of us are feeling a bit upbeat right now. Others are still anxious, depressed, scared, apprehensive. It's Mental Health Awareness Week, and we really just want to bring to the forefront that there is some real mental health struggles that people have had during this time, regardless of what's going on with their businesses. And really my job today is to help you to understand that we can all help each other to come out of this. And the closer that we work with each other in partnership, the better we're all going to come as a small business community through what's happened. Success in 21 is likely to look really different to how we might have defined our success at the beginning of 2020. I don't know if anyone set goals in January 2020. If you look back at them right now, you're going to think, well, that was amazingly optimistic of me. Had no idea what was coming. So what we're looking at now in May 21, looking into the new tax year that we just started off in, is thinking about planning in a very different way to how we might have done it pre-COVID. There's something quite useful that we can also look back on over that past year, and those are our failures. I like to just remind ourselves that I sometimes call these learnings through failure. Some of them are really, really powerful. Don't be scared of looking back and saying, this thing didn't work last year. We can learn stuff from that. So my first takeaway really is to use our numbers to really get ourselves down and dirty with them. Don't be scared of going and digging into your numbers and trying to ask those questions. What can I learn from this? Even if it's, I had no sales for 3 months, what can I learn from that? What can I do to make sure that if that situation comes up again, I've got a plan? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So my agenda for today, we'll see if we can get through all of this. We've got challenges that we want to overcome. So we're going to have a quick look at that. Focus on what we can control. It's really important. We were talking right at the beginning about the stuff that we have no control of, or the things that we're being told that may not stick from within tax law. So let's really focus on what we can control. Revise our product service mix, something I think we can really have a good look at today. A little bit on marketing and comms. human resources, that doesn't necessarily mean staff. That might be joint ventures, it might be outsourcing, it might be the other people that help you in your business. Knowing your numbers, a little bit on finance, profitability and cash flow, and what your plan is to get back to business, whatever that might look like for you. Before we get stuck into any of that, I just need to throw out my usual disclaimer, which is that the information that I give out now is educational and general in nature, and it's no substitute for tailored advice specific to your particular circumstances. I hate having to say that, but I'm an accountant, so that's what I just have to get out into the place. Right, so today we're going to look at some of the challenges you might be facing and what you're going to need to overcome them. We're then going to help you focus on what you can control, in particular key areas of your business that will help you mitigate risk and get the best outcomes for your business, including your product or service mix, marketing, communications, and then looking into finance. And what we're really trying to do is get a plan together to get your business on the best footing for 2021/22, but also looking a bit further ahead. So we've got really used to looking in quite small chunks of time. This past 12 months, some of us have just been looking a month ahead at a time. Now is the time to step back a little bit and start thinking about 1-year plans, 3-year plans, and 5-year plans. And with a little bit of settling down and what's going on in the economy, we can start to make some of those further plans out. So, challenges to overcome. For some of you, the biggest challenge you face is whether your business is even going to survive. I'm aware that for some people that is still definitely on the cards. We're thinking about cash flow issues. We're thinking about how we get through a period where perhaps has been longer in lockdown than you were originally expecting when you took out loans, perhaps CBILS or bounce back loans, maybe back in May or June last year, and we were expecting we would have had 6 months of trading by now. Now, for some people, if you're in the events industries, you'll find that that's not the case. You're still waiting to really get started. So we've got a little bit of thinking about how we deal with that. I hope by the end of this talk, you're going to feel confident about the steps you can take to give your business the best chance of survival and even perhaps growth. The needs of every business right now are totally different, but there are likely to be some common themes. And that's what we've got up on the screen here. So needing to know about what my new break-even level is and what your minimum viable sales might be, what changes might I need to make to my product and my service mix, what recruitment or HR changes I might need to make, what do I need to understand from my numbers? And then we'll talk a little bit about what help is available out there. It's really key to set aside some time to work on your business and develop your strategy for getting back to business. And I think this is one of the big challenges that most business owners are facing right now. If you're anything like me, you've been really involved in operational stuff. So delivery, making sure that things are still happening. Now is a good time to set some blocks in your diary to step back and do a bit of working on your business. So a little bit of planning time, some time to step back and just have a bit more of a thought about longer term planning. It's really good to be thinking about doing that right now. One of the first steps you can take is to develop or update your risk register to help you profile your risks and establish your focus. Has anybody, I can't see everybody, Julie, you can always shout out if you can see the rest of them. Has anybody actually got a risk register, or has anybody gone through this process before? I'm seeing lots of nodding. Yeah, Nikki's got one, fab, okay. And I can see, I think Nadej has got one as well. There may be some other people who've done this before. So a risk register does not need to be an enormous spreadsheet or a really big task to put together. I always say version 1.0 is better than version 0. So even if you just do a really basic one, that's a lot better than not having one at all. So a risk register identifies the risks within each department in your business. And you can see those key areas I've got down the side. That's using the principle of the 10 hats in your business, which some people might have come across, that we've got these different departments. If you're a one-man band, you're probably wearing all of the hats. If you're not wearing a hat, then you've probably got a hole in what you're doing with your business. And if you're in a smaller business, very often the business owner is wearing at least governance, leadership, probably some ops, most likely a bit of marketing and finance. They're often doing the HR bit as well. So you often find you're juggling all of these hats. And the useful thing about having a risk register is that it helps you to focus on all of those areas separately, and work out where your risks are in your business and therefore where you should be putting your time. It really helps with that feeling of overwhelm that I often see business owners having as into, right, I've got all of this stuff I need to deal with. I have no idea where to begin. And a risk register will help you to do that. So what we do with a risk register is we allocate a score out of 5 for each of your areas. You multiply that by a risk factor to establish an overall risk rating, and that helps you to highlight. You can see on this screen, you can see those ones that are in red. That helps you to highlight where your highest risk areas are and then what you might need to do next. And now, if you don't have a risk register, I've got a free template, so just drop me a note and I can share that with you. It's really nice. It's a kind of interactive template, and you put in the figures and it'll put it all through and create a picture a bit like this for you. So as we embrace and set our new plan for the 21-22 year, we need to get really clear on our focus. What are the areas which are within our control and will have the greatest impact on our results? And we were talking a little bit earlier about what we can't control and what we can control. And here we've got a nice list of those things that we can control in our businesses. So we need to consider things that we should stop doing so we can free up time to do new things, because what we can say yes to is defined by what we say no to. Very many business owners I know really struggle with the saying no to stuff, especially if it's a potential new customer and they might have fitted into your avatar before COVID, but now looking at what we've got coming up, it may be that they're no longer the right fit for where your business is heading. Saying no to that is really tricky, especially if you're not sure about your cash flow. So if you're worried about cash flow, I find business owners who don't have a good feel for what's happening with their cash are the ones that carry on saying yes to the wrong customers. The unprofitable ones, it's only going to drag your cash down. So really watch out for who you're saying no to as well as what you're saying yes to. To help get back to business, there are 5 areas which are likely to have the biggest impact. So firstly, working on your business, because it's essential you take time out of working in the business to be able to work on it. Next, reviewing your product or service mix to respond to the changes that we've seen. Really so much change over the last 12 months that if you haven't looked at your product and service mix over the last 12 months, you need to, whatever it is that you're selling, even if it's something like accounting, which you think we've been doing it like this since 1500s, we still need a different kind of product or service mix for what's required now as to what was required previously. We need to consider our marketing and our comms. So have you got a plan for communicating that you're back in business? If you've opened your doors up again, if people are welcome to come back into your premises, for example, have you thought about how you're telling people about that? And can you attract a different sector of the market than the one that you were attracting previously? That's all going to come under marketing and comms. What human resources are needed? Again, that's not just people that are employees, that could be other people that you work alongside. It could be your suppliers as well. What are your resourcing gaps? And do you need to recruit people in to fill those gaps? Alternatively, are you over-resourced in any areas? Was the way that you were set up previously, let's take for example, you had an office that people used to come to, so you had a receptionist who was always there to welcome guests in. If you're not going to go back into an office in the same way, do you need that same resource? Or actually, could you reuse that person to do something different in your business? And lastly, we're going to look at finances, profitability, and cash flow. So this is all about your financial record keeping, your personal budget. Now, you might think that's a surprising thing to hear when we're talking about businesses and business recovery. Really want to focus on your personal budget. It's really important here. And also your business budget. So what changes do you need to make to your budgets and your plans? What bank or government support do you need? What's available to you? And we're going to go into those areas in more detail now. So lots of cliches about working on the business. What does it actually mean? You've heard people talk about this before, but working on your business is when you take time out of your day-to-day role and you focus on planning. And you might have that with a block at a certain time of the day. You might have a certain day in the week when you do this. Or you may say, I'll look at it as a monthly project and there'll be a time in the month. And if you're going to do that, I would normally suggest week 2 of the month. So you've had week 1 to make sure all of your financials from the last month are all up to date. Week 2 is a really nice time to do a reflect on last month and to do a plan for the rest of the month and looking a bit further forward. And you might want to ask somebody to help you with that. So, you know, if you've got an accountant that you work with on a monthly basis, try and get those slots in for something like week 2, so that your accountant can advise you really well, because you've got some data that's clean and finished up that you can share as well. Working on your business is when you take time out of your day. It's really easy to get bogged down in daily tasks and get to concentrate on what you want the future to look like. So making sure you've got a plan and a clear understanding is really going to help you to move through that. And once you've set that plan, you need to review and update it regularly. So it's all well and good putting all the time in at the beginning of the year to write your forecast or your budget. If you don't look at it again, it's a worthless piece of paper. So making sure that when you do set your budget, you also set some time in to have a look at that. If you're using something like Xero and you don't use the budget manager in Xero, I know lots of customers of mine and other people that come to us and they say, my Xero is great, I'm doing exactly what I want. Next step, if you've got your Xero really running up to date, is the budget manager. It is hidden. They've hidden it away under reporting in this very strange place to find. If anybody's struggling to get hold of it, give me a shout and I'll show you where it is. Once you get into it, it's really easy to use, and you can export it out to Excel and work on it in Excel and re-import it if you need to. But if you've got quite a simple business, you can create your budget right inside Xero, and then you can look at how you're doing against your budget month on month, year on year. It's a really great reporting tool, and I think it's underutilized. So takeaway, if you're not doing it, go and have a look at the budget manager. So if you're running a business and there's nobody else in it, you might think leadership sounds like a strange thing to focus on, but you're still a leader of a business, even if it's only you in there. And as a leader, there are some key habits you need to develop to ensure you've got the best chance of success. So that's dedicating time to work on the business regularly, keeping your plan up to date, taking time outside of the business for your own well-being, staying positive and above the line. And we talk about being above or below the line a lot in my business. That's really about the sort of attitude that you bring to your business. Staying up above the line could be really hard. You can get bogged down in things, which is why a group like this is so useful, because when you feel like you're sinking below the line, there's going to be somebody else in the group who can just pull you back up and over. So really focusing on what you can control helps with that feeling of how to stay up above the line. And then measuring the right things and taking time out to look at your numbers. And we always recommend, as best practice for a business owner, that you have these 3 essentials, and that's an annual business plan, an annual forecast, and some ongoing reporting and accountability. And you can do the 2 of those things, you can do yourself without any trouble, and you can have accountability in a formalized way with a coach, an accountant, or you could have it in a buddy system. And I know lots of business owners, especially in their sort of startup phases, they might find that buddying up, it's got no financial impact. They're not having to pay somebody to help them with it, but it can be really helpful to be on both sides of that relationship. So having somebody to hold you accountable, but also being the accountability partner for somebody, can be a really great way to grow as a leader. So really consider those 3 things: business plan, a forecast, and then some accountability. So let's have a look at this product and service mix. So perhaps the biggest area of opportunity right now that I see is a review of your product and your service mix. I'm sure you've already thought about changes that you may need to make to your products or your services from what's happened over the last 12 months. Things like diversifying your offering, adapting your product to better suit an online world, or focusing on a different customer base might all have come to mind. You should have information on hand to evaluate each product or service to see which are selling well and which aren't. And if you're using Xero, you can use your data to really help you to get that information together. So if you're using something like Xero, and at the moment you put all of your income in as sales, as a single line on your P&L, there may be something better that you could be doing. So there are some things in Xero called tracking categories, which allow you to split up your information into a different way than your chart of accounts. And we use that with some of our clients for things like understanding the geography of where our income is coming from. So it may be that you've got an online offering and you want to know, is it being bought in Europe? Is it being bought in America? Or is it being bought in Asia? And you could have a tracking category for those 3 areas, and then you could run mini P&Ls on each of the areas. So you can start to understand what that mix is in your business right now. So that's looking at what you've got at the moment, and then forecasting forward, where do you see the biggest growth areas to be? And you could you can use those tracking categories for all sorts of different things. So if you're not using tracking categories or items in Xero, another couple of ways that you can get hold of some of this data. You want to know if any of your products or services have become obsolete. We've now got 12 months of data going backwards over the COVID period, and you should be able to then pull from that which products are no longer relevant. If you have a product, for example, that's been an in real life face-to-face sort of product, and you've replaced it with an online offering, you might want to be looking at that mix and saying, do we want to continue with the online offering even when people come back into the workplace? Maybe that's more appropriate. So starting to have a look at that data that we've gathered so far will help you with this decision making. Have you got any complementary products or services you could add to your mix? Really worth thinking about. So what is our core offering? And for some people, there's been a real really been a close look at what we do in our core. We've been really concentrating on that. Now might be a good time to say, what could we add on to that as a complement? What has changed in the world that allows us to bring this extra service in? So I would have a bit of time to really think about what else could I be selling? What else do my customers really want from me? What have I been doing in the past that's not really appropriate anymore? So there's a really useful framework to this that we like to use. It's called the Ansoff matrix. If you studied economics at university like I did, you might have come across this. You might have seen other people use it, but the Ansoff matrix helps you understand products and markets. You might have seen it before in some other contexts as well. So this framework shows us 4 strategies for growth based on new and existing markets and products. Really relevant right now because we've got lots of new markets and possibly lots of new products. So the first strategy is market penetration. It means selling more of your existing products in your existing markets. So to be able to do this, you need to be in charge of your information about your current customers. So this is where what Julia does with Capsule really comes into its own. It's having that information about your customers and being able to talk to them makes it much easier to sell what you've already got to them, sell more of what you're already offering. And for most of my client base and the people I talk to, this is where we should really be starting. These are your quick wins. These are your easy ones, where it's all about making sure that your current customers know what it is that you sell and selling more of it to them. Your second area is product development. So this is all about thinking about either enhancing your current products or services or adding more value to what you're already offering, or developing entirely new products or services. I've got this marked down as medium risk. So the first option is your lowest risk one, which is why we think of it as your quick win. This has got a bit more risk to it because you're going to spend a bit of time developing a product. You don't absolutely know, because you haven't tested it in the market yet, how that's going to go. But this would be my next area to look at. Alongside market development. So if you choose market development, you could expand geographically. Now that might be easier right now because things like Zoom have really opened up geographically the markets that we can talk to. For example, if you're doing things like webinars, where you might have done a seminar in the past and it was in, I don't know, at Newbury Racecourse, it's going to be people from the Newbury area. Now, if you're running a webinar, it could be anybody from anywhere in the world. So market development, definitely something to have a think about. Again, medium risk, like product development. And then the final strategy we've got is diversification. Now, right now, I would say this is not something you should be putting all of your eggs into the basket of. This is high risk. So diversification is about new products to new markets. If you're having to do this right now, you need to really be feeling very brave about it. Focus on the others first. That would be the sensible thing to do for 21, 22. Focus on market penetration, then product development and market development afterwards. Okay, it's really important to avoid trying to take on too much at once. So start with one strategy. Pick your strategy, focus on it. Maybe take a quarter. So take 3 months and say, our strategy is just going to be this for the moment. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll come back in 3 months and revisit. As part of your review of your product or service mix, you're likely to review your pricing. So you may be tempted discount your prices. You might have already had to discount your prices during the last year, and you might be needing to come back and have another look at what you've done with your pricing over the year and try to get back to a sensible pricing point for the moment. So definitely should be looking at your prices right now. You might want to consider increasing your prices as a way to grow your revenue, but you need to think about what impact that's going to have on your customer base. So for example, sorry, here are the numbers. You knew they were coming. If your gross margin is 30% and you discount your price by 10%, you can see those are the highlighted areas, you'd need to increase your sales by 50% to keep the same profit level. Or, hopefully, if you choose to increase your price by 10% at the same gross margin of 30%, your sales could reduce by 25% before your gross margin will reduce to a level that's lower than it was prior to the price increase. So you can see these things have to work in conjunction with each other in order for you to work out where you're going to be with your sales. We can send you over these tables after the webinar to help you establish your pricing levels. So if you want to have a play with those and see what happens if you're discounting or looking at putting your prices up, no hiking. If you're going to do that and you want to see what the impact's going to be on your sales, we can share this this little tool with you. So marketing and communications, I'm just going to quickly whiz through these. Of course, it's really important that we're communicating right now. I've seen a lot of people pull back a little bit from communication during 21. I think it's tiredness as much as anything, but there's a really key point of communication that can happen right now. And that's about what's your plan for the rest of the year? Are you opening up again? Are you going to be inviting people in? If you're in hospitality or something like that, you've got to be really on top of these comms right now. Don't forget, your loyal customers are going to be really eager to support you as you get back to business, and that gives you an opportunity to broaden your customer base. By clearly communicating your intentions across lots of channels, your advocates can like, tag, and share their support. So really see if you can use that to your advantage. Now's a great time to ensure you know who your customers are. And that means having a great CRM system. So talk to Julia about Capsule, integrates brilliantly with Xero, and that's my preferred connection. But don't forget that also fits in with MailChimp. So another great way of getting communications out. And Julia can help you bring all of those things together in order to communicate better with your customers. You need to start by crafting your message. And that really needs to be clear right now. People haven't got a lot of headspace for loads of information. They just want clarity. So when we're thinking about your key messages, how about just having a little focus on the health perspective? So reassuring your customers and the people that work with you, and don't forget your team in your communications. It's really important that they feel that you've got a nice, clear message on this as well, that you've taken the safety measures that you need to take to keep them safe, explaining how you're going to manage social distancing, safe payment processes, cleaning, those kind of things when people are coming back in. It's really important to clarify any changes in opening hours or operations. So that might be explaining new people you've got in your team, or if you've had to change your team around, making sure that's really clear to your customers what they can expect. And also promoting any of those new products or services that you've identified using it and Soft Matrix, making sure that those are communicated well to your customers. It's great to come up with new ideas, but if you don't tell your customers about them, you can't sell them. So communicating your key messages in the right places. They need to be promoted on your website, across your socials, Google listings, physical premises, lots of things to think about there. Don't forget you can put them into your email signatures. You might even want to send out text messages to your clients. You could do it on a Facebook Live. You can do it through forums like LinkedIn. Don't assume your customers will go looking for your information in the same place. So it's not good enough to put it on Facebook and assume that everyone's read it. You need to make sure that you've got it across the board. A potential customer may need to see your messaging a few times before they prioritize spending with you. The understanding is that the number of touches you need has gone up enormously in the last 12 months. So you used to say, what, 7, 12, 24, something like that. I've heard people say 50 touches. I mean, there's an enormous amount of information out there. So clarity is really, really important when you're making those messages regularly. Now is a fabulous time to try something new in the marketing space. There's lots of empathy and appreciation available. Use it to your advantage and use regular touch points to reiterate your safety messages, your going back to work messages, demonstrating those to make sure that your customers feel like a very low level of anxiety when they're dealing with you. They want clarity. For example, like if you've been into a medical centre, if you've gone and had your jab recently, doctors have been taught to do things like washing their hands in front of you. They don't need to do that. The reason they're doing it is that they're demonstrating that they're taking your safety seriously. So something that we've seen customers, our clients do, is to vocalise that. So while they're talking to their customers, let's take an ice cream shop, they're saying, I'm just sanitising my hands before I serve you your ice cream. That vocalisation makes their customers feel low anxiety, and that really helps. Oh, sorry, I've gone a couple of slides forward. You can also think about scripting these messages so that your staff are saying exactly what you're saying. It's well and good having it in your mind and having put it out on social media. If your staff don't know it, then they're not sharing that same message across the board. So you've got to document what your marketing plan is. Loads of people within our lovely community who can help you with those marketing plans. And that's going to be things like crafting an avatar. How do you stand out from the noise? How do you promote your service mix? And asking your customers what they want. If you know who your customers are, because you've got a good CRM, you can then also ask them what it is that they want. I'm going to quickly touch on human resources. Really important consideration if you have got staff. Your current plans need to assess what your HR needs are, and you need to clarify if you've got holes in your staffing plan. Who do you need on your bus? So think about your business as a bus. Who needs to be there? Who's mucking about on the back seat and throwing things at each other's heads? Who do you need to get off your bus? Do you still need a bus, or do you actually need a minivan? Questions that you really need to ask yourself about how your business is going to look in the future. Don't forget, if you're the driver, are you also trying to change the music, keep everybody at the back behaving? Have you got your eye on the road? What can you take off your shoulders and pass to somebody else? Because if you're driving the bus, you need to be looking forward. And that's all about making sure you've got your planning absolutely sorted. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. So just a quick slide in here about team wellbeing. If you're the only person in your team, you're still a person in your team that has a well-being that needs to be cared for. It's really, really important. And I've seen a lot of business owners right on the edge of burnout, or just tipping over onto the other side of it. We don't need that right now. And I think what we're seeing is people have this expectation. It's spring. We're seeing all of this opening up. We're meant to be having a wonderful time, and some people really aren't feeling it. That's okay. You've had 12 months of really, really tough times. And so focusing on your well-being is an important part of your leadership of your business. So here are the 7 daily essentials. We'll share these slides so you can have another look at them. But what I'd like to just point out with these, we've got physical time, downtime, playtime. Who's got playtime in their list at the moment? I think that's something that's really fallen off for a lot of people. Nice to see that, Julie. I love to see that. Sleep, time in, focus time, and connecting time. That might be, I know that the focus for this Mental Health Awareness Week is about nature, taking your shoes off, getting your feet on the grass and feeling grounded. Even if it's 5 minutes, can make all of the difference to what goes on next. So just that healthy mind platter is really helpful for me. I try to keep it tucked away. Have I done one of these, something from one of these activities every day? 5 minutes might be all that you need, but just making sure that it doesn't get forgotten. Right, let's talk about finances. So all of what we've talked about so far is going to have an impact on your finances, your profitability, and your cash flow. And that's why I started with those not obviously accounting type of areas, because they all matter and they all have an impact on what happens in your finances. It's important to get the order right. First off, we need to understand what our numbers are telling us from what has happened in the past. The last 12 months have some really useful data for us, and also some red herrings. And that's the bit I'd just like you to have a little focus on. So let's assume that you're keeping some good records and you're doing it up to date. My base level for that, what I mean by keeping up to date, is at the end of each month, you have totted up all of your columns and you know what your monthly figures are. Really, these days, anything less than that is not good enough. I know some people just do it quarterly because they want to do their VAT returns. If you're not VAT registered, there are still some people saying, I'll work it out to the end of the year. You can't do that anymore. It's just not applicable for running a business because the world is changing much faster than annually. It's changing daily. And so we need to at least know what our figures are at the end of the month. That information that's held in your spreadsheet or in Xero is what you're going to base your forecasting on. So without that, you are, I was going to say you're screwed. You are actually, you really need to know that information. And the red herrings I'm talking about, 2 things to watch out for in that data: bounce back loans or CBILS if you've taken CBILS, or what's going to become recovery loans. If anybody in the world ever gets one, please let me know. I haven't found a single person who's actually managed to get one yet. Have you, Julie? I'm thrilled. A recovery loan. You're like a rare, you're a rare beast. It's good to hear. I'll ask you about that a bit later. So those items will be showing up in your data from last year if you've had them. Furlough payments also will be in there. Grants also will be in there. Don't forget, grants are taxable. So you do need to have them in your profit and loss account, but you need them on a separate line. Please don't mix them up anywhere else. Don't chuck them into other income. You need to show them on a separate line for your management accounting, for your reporting. Your accountant will also ask you what those are and pull them out in your year-end accounts. But the reason we want them separated is that when you're going to compare 21-22 with what happened last year, you want to be comparing like for like. And if you receive grants, especially those people with self-employed income support scheme grants, some of them are larger than your expected income. There's been some really chunky grants in there. If you add them in with your rates related grants, I've seen clients who've called me recently and said, I am terrified. My tax bill is going to be enormous because of these grants. You need to know how much they are. You need to remember that they're taxable, and you need to be able to extract them from your data so that when you're comparing like for like, you're not getting in a muddle as to what you can expect to happen this year. You won't be getting those kind of grants ever again, I don't think. So you really don't want them to be muddying up your data. From that information that you've got, so you're going to pull out your data from the last year, you're then going to model forward. You're not going to assume that it's going to be exactly like last year. There was some weird stuff that happened. But what you can do is start to say, if we mix together some information that we had from the COVID period with what happened in the year before, and maybe take some averages from there, we can start to forecast forward with what coming out of lockdown is going to look like, maybe similar to what going through that period when we had that sort of opening up during the summer, before we had our second lockdown. Some of the information and data you've got from that period could be helpful for modelling what's going to happen next. What I always say is to start off with your personal circumstances and determine your personal budget for the next 12 months. So that is, what do I need to cover my mortgage? What personal circumstances do I need to take into account that are going to come up? Because that's going to determine what your business needs to give you. And if we can work out what your business needs to give you, we can then work backwards and say, and therefore, what does my business need to do in its profitability in order to give me what I need to take out? If you've read Profit First, those principles about making sure you as a business owner get your profit out of the business before you do the other things, really, really helpful. It's a book that I would highly recommend. Then we do our business budget and we see if your personal budget is achievable given the business's cash flow and profit forecast. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. Why you need to know your numbers. Okay, your numbers tell us a number of things. They tell the story of your business, so they allow you to interpret the results of your business activity. That's one of the things that they do. Some people stop there. There's a lot more in there than you think. It also helps you to identify the symptoms versus the root causes. So for example, a decline in gross profit is a symptom of many root causes, such as ineffective pricing, having to do rework, so inefficiencies, poor purchasing choices, or wastage. And you can have wastage even if you're in a service business. That's where you spend time on things that doesn't bring us in profit. So really watch out for those kind of efficiency issues. Knowing your numbers also gives you an early warning system. So if you're having a look at your figures only at the end of the year, it's too late. Your early warning has been lost. So what we want to do is make sure that we're looking at them on a regular basis. An example of this is something like monitoring how long it takes customers to pay you. This is Nikki's bag all over. So Nikki Kinton from Confident Cashflow. So knowing how long it's taking your customers to pay you, if that is slowly getting longer and longer, if those debtor days are getting longer, that is a problem that you need to fix, and you need to fix it now. So that may be changing the way you chase up your customers. It may be changing how you communicate with them. It may be giving them more simple ways to pay you. Your competitors are doing this already. And not necessarily your direct competitors. It may be that your customers are buying something from you that takes a little bit of time to get the bits of paper signed off. Then they've got to set up a standing order. Then they've got to remember to tell the bank that that's got to go. That's too long. That process is too long. They're used to going onto Amazon, clicking buy now. That's the end of the story. How can you make your process like the Amazon buy now process? So that might be using Go Cardless for direct debit. It might be making sure you've got card payment facilities available. Super cheap these days. You can use something like Stripe. There's no transaction. There is a transaction fee. Don't hold me to that. There's no standing fee. There's only a transaction fee. So you only pay for it when you use it. And you need to start thinking about that. If you've still got a business that people send you checks in the post, you are so far behind that those debtor days are going to become a real problem for you. So you need to have a look at how you're being paid. Your backwards looking figures, your historical figures are going to show you your areas of strength and weaknesses, and it's a way to highlight those. For example, if you're looking at your balance sheet, that's going to tell you whether your business value is going up or down. So don't just look at your P&L, your balance sheet is important too. Understanding your numbers means you've got reliable financial information to base your decisions on, but also for your bank to base decisions on. And if you're going to go for lending, you're going to have those statements up to date. Banks won't stand for old data anymore. They really want up-to-date information. And finally, knowledge is power. So the more you know about your business, the better your business is going to be. Quickly, just talking through your profit and loss account. This is where people sometimes get a bit lost. So your profit and loss account can also be called your income statement, and it shows all your earnings and costs over the year, or if you're looking at it monthly as management accounts over the month, and it tracks your overall performance of your business. It matches your income and expenses for the period with adjustments made for timing differences, for example, sales that have been made, but money that's not come in yet. So when you're thinking about your profit and loss account, it's telling you about things that have been invoiced to you or you have invoiced to them, but not necessarily what's been paid. And that often catches people out. It's important to remember profit is not the same as cash. The profit shown in your profit and loss account includes non-cash expenses. So that's things like depreciation. You must ensure you've got sufficient profit to cover cash costs, such as your loan principal repayments. Again, that won't show up in your profit and loss account. Any asset purchases you need to make. So for example, you need a new laptop, that's not going to show up in your profit and loss account. And also the drawings you need from your business. None of that shows in your profit and loss account. And I think this is where many business owners get a bit lost. That difference between cash and profit, if you can take that away with you from today, that would be really a big step forward, really helps you to understand what's going on in your business better. Businesses are generally valued using a multiplier of their earnings, so your profit. So your profit and loss account is a fundamental driver of the value of your business, and the higher your earnings, the higher your value. That's important for a number of reasons. If you're wanting to borrow, that's going to be one of the deciding factors for the bank. And if you ever want to sell your business, or if you want to think about how you're going to exit your business, the value is going to be the driver for that. So keeping an eye on your balance sheet is just as important as your P&L. And I see a lot of business owners only looking at the P&L on a regular basis. Might look at the balance sheet at the end of the year, maybe. They normally say, I don't really understand it, Tory. So really worth asking those questions. If you've got an accountant who doesn't talk through your balance sheet, ask them to do so. They understand it. They can share that knowledge with you. Difference between profit and cash, just talked about. These 3 points, keep them in your head. Turnover is vanity. People that talk about how big their turnover is, doesn't matter a jot if there's no profit at the end of it. Profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality. You can only go you can only run out of cash once in your business. Once that's happened, you've gone. There is no more business. You can have multiple loss-making periods and still have cash in the bank. Get those things right in your head, and it will really help you get through this period. So the Business 101 cycle, really useful way to demonstrate the difference between profit and cash. So first, you as the owner puts money into the business. That money then gets used to purchase the assets you need to run your business. The business may need additional profit. So that might be something like your business bank loan or other loans from other places. And that helps you to generate more income. Your assets are there to generate income for you. Those assets are then used to generate a profit. And you can generate more profit by increasing your margins, for example. You can increase your growth of sales, but overhead expenses drain your profit and result in a loss if they're not managed. The profit gets turned into cash. So that's how this cycle works. And we need to just make sure that we understand all of those points as you go around the cycle. Drains on your cash include slow collection of debtors, high inventory days. So if you're holding on to stock for too long, that's what an inventory day is. Loan repayments. So once bounce back loans start to come in, you really need to factor those in. Tax repayments. Don't forget, if you deferred your VAT in that period, February, March, April 2020, those repayments of that VAT have started or can start in the next couple of months, and you need to factor that into your cash flow, and making sure your payments to your suppliers are made. So a business can achieve cash gains by collecting their debtors faster, decreasing their inventory days, negotiating longer payment terms with suppliers, and reducing tax. The owner then takes cash out of the business. Let me just get that to click across. There we go. The owner then takes cash out of the business as drawings or repaying the loans that you might have put in right at the beginning. And the remaining cash is then used to reinvest into the business to purchase more assets and to generate more income. And the aim is to go through this cycle as fast as you can. So if you can get that bit in your head, how do you speed up that cycle so that the cash is available to reinvest into your business? That is the Business 101 cycle. Really think about what you can do to speed it up. So that might be faster payments. It might be getting your money into your assets and getting those assets working more quickly. Might be about training. How quickly can you get your staff to do the work that they need to do as efficiently as possible? So that's a really useful model to get through that. We've got a balance sheet that sits alongside that. Your balance sheet measures your net worth of your business. It shows if your business is solvent. It's really important to know about that right now. It compares different periods. So your balance sheet is a snapshot of what your business looks like on a specific day. Your P&L looks at a period of time. Your balance sheet is on a specific day. And that means that then you can look at this day compared to another day in the future or in the past. And it's useful for tracking how strong your business is. It also gives you some of your key ratios, so things like debtor days, which is really important for you to know. So setting a personal budget, I've popped this idea in your head already, and we've got a really nice free spreadsheet that you can use in order to set your personal budget, and it helps you to work out what it is that you need from your business. Julia, are we okay on time? I've got a couple more slides. Yeah, okay, great. So once we've worked out what your personal budget is, we can then update our business budget, and then we can use that in order to work out what we're going to do going forward. So I just want to quickly finish up with these two slides, which I think are really important for us to focus on. If you've struggled with cash flow in your business, it's going to come down to one or more of these 7 causes of poor cash flow. So having a really close look at these as part of your planning is essential. You're going to need a cash flow forecast for the next 12 months. It's just one of the things that you're going to use to get yourself through a changing environment. A cash flow forecast allows you to know if you can afford to spend money on things like marketing, or if in fact you've got to hold back on the timing on that for a little while. It also helps you know if you should be repaying your bounce back loan, for example, in its normal terms, or you should be asking for the extension. So we've been given a 6-month extension to when you can restart your payments on your bounce back loans. So if you have one, think about using that 6-month extension. If you need it, it's going to cost you more money. So if you've got plenty of cash flow, you can start paying it back at the normal time. But you won't know that if you haven't done a cash flow forecast. So 7 causes of poor cash flow. Accounts receivable process. Are you not collecting your debtors on time? Are you allowing people to put you to the bottom of the pile because other people are shouting louder? Or do they think you're a pushover? And these things can happen quite easily. The last 12 months, people have been kind to their customers. Sometimes kindness doesn't always help them in the long run. So allowing customers to not pay you for a long time means that they've suddenly got a lot of money that's due to you. That can be a lot more awkward than them paying on a regular basis. So you have a really good look at your accounts receivable process. Nikki will be, I'm sure, happy to talk people through that and to explain how she can help. Do you need to have a look at your terms again? Are you giving too much credit? Do you have a process for people that don't pay? What's your accounts payable process? Are you paying the right people at the right time? So I'm not saying hold on to all of your money for 90 days and don't pay anybody until they come knocking on your door. That's not good process. It breaks down your relationship with your suppliers, but pay them at the right time. When they ask for you to pay them, make sure you've negotiated the right terms. Make sure if you're having to buy in from your supplier and you need to wait for your customer to pay you, that your terms are matching up with those terms you've got with your customers. Can you get a better deal? Have you asked for a better deal? And something I'm seeing a lot of at the moment, did you sign up for subscriptions, especially for software, over the last 12 months and you're not using them? So other things you can actually just get rid of that are going out automatically on your credit card, perhaps. Or have you come out of a trial period and you're now being charged a higher rate? That could be renegotiated. If you're holding stock, you need to look at your inventory process, but I know most of the people on this call don't do that. Have you got an inappropriate debt or capital structure? This is expensive borrowing. Did you have a scary patch when COVID first hit and you thought, crikey, I'll just get a funding circle loan, and you paid whatever the going rate was for that? Is it time to restructure that? Restructuring is a very sensible thing to do. If you've got high interest rates, maybe you've used a personal credit card for something for business, think about restructuring that. It's not so easy right now. There isn't quite so much capital out there in the market, but it can be done. You'll only be able to do it if you've got good record keeping. So nobody's going to lend to you if you don't have a good P&L cash flow balance sheet. But if you've got those in place, you can go and be a good conversation with your bank. There are people out there looking to help you right now. Are your overheads too high? So world's changed a lot. Are you still paying for too much office space? Are you paying to heat a big building that you don't really need? Have you perhaps got some things that you're paying for on an annual basis that you could have on a monthly basis to help you with your cash flow? So having a really good look into your overheads, going through them line by line and pulling out the rubbish that's in there is a very smart way of sorting out some cash flow problems. Is your gross profit margin wrong? So that's what's left from sales after you've deducted your variable costs. What can you do to increase that margin? So that might be changing your pricing, but it might be looking for efficiency, taking out rework, improving productivity with your team. I don't suggest you whip them harder. Most of them won't react very well to that, but there may be other things you could do to help your team be more productive. And that might be around their well-being. So don't forget that well-being platter. And finally, it's really simple. Are your sales levels just too low? Are you telling people what you've got for sale? Are you making sure it matches to what your customers actually want to buy from you? And are you reaching out as far as you can? Are you using your networks the way that you ought to be? I know this list is a bit overwhelming. Just choose one or two from there, concentrate on it for a quarter, implement some strategies, make small changes at a time. So if you can take maybe just one for today, pop it on your list. When you get to the end of this meeting, I'll ask you to think of 3 things you're going to do. Maybe take one of these and really focus on it for a short period of time, and then pick away at them. It's all process. None of this is going to be perfect, but just making a step in the right direction will really help. On the other side, on the flip side, so we talked about cash flow. There are 7 ways to grow your business. Really simple. How do you look after your customers better? How do you retain the customers that you've already got? How do you increase the number of leads that you generate? So that's going to be a marketing thing. How do you get that communication across better? How do you increase your customer conversion rate? Do you need some sales training? Do you need to talk about what your sales process looks like? Do you need to just close your deals? The number of people that leave deals on the table because they don't want to pick up the phone and talk to their potential customers. Sometimes it's as simple as picking up the phone and saying, do you want to sign this or not? It might be as simple as that. So if you're not doing that last bit on your sales process, having a little look at that. How do you increase your transaction value? Is it if you buy this one, you get this one at half price? Is there a way of building that into your model? How do you get people to buy more frequently? If you're selling something like I do that's useful on a quarterly basis, so we do quarterly coaching with our clients, over the last year, actually monthly coaching has been more appropriate for them. How do you do more of what you do with the people that you've already got? How do you reduce your cost of sales, efficiencies, those kind of things? And how do you reduce your overheads? So going through, looking at data, what can you cull from there? So a business plan, you need a plan to get back to business. This is our business recovery plan. So just as an example of what you might do, we summarize our key challenges. We look at the opportunities that are already out there and the threats and vulnerabilities that we need to manage. We talk about what our most critical KPIs are. If you're measuring key performance indicators in your business, pull out the ones that are really critical. Go back to your risk register. What are the areas that you really need to focus on right now? And we add in, what are our 5 most important habits to maintain? They may be business habits or they may be personal habits, but really focusing on what are those things that you need to do now in order to come through this recovery period. We then have a little look at what we need for our personal spending. And we build that into our business recovery plan. That might surprise people. Really important that you know what it is your business needs to do for you. We then have a little look through what our budget's going to be in there. And then we work out what the different departments are, what we're going to do differently in them, what are the annual goals, and then break them down into 90-day actions. Make sure they're accountable, who's going to do it, and when are they going to do it by. So there's an example of what a business recovery plan might look like. And how can we help you? So this is just an explanation of what we can do. So at Panthera, we do those business plans with people. And if you want to do that, I'm always very, very happy to help. Even non-clients, even if you've got a different accountant, but you just want to do a bit of planning, really happy to do that. But otherwise, there are lots of free things we've got today as well. So we've got a risk register we can share with you. We've got a personal budget template we can share with you. And we've got the back to business action list. So to help you take from what we've just talked about, what you need to do next. All of those are freebies. Just drop me a message and I will send them to you. Business recovery plan and business planning. And if you just want to have a chat, if there's something specific that you're worrying about, I'm always at the end of the phone and we'll do that for free as well. So that just tells you a little bit about what we do at Panthera. Parting thought, most successful people see adversity not as a stumbling block, but as a stepping stone to greatness. We've learned a lot over the last year. Use it as a stepping stone. Don't let it bog you down, but let's use those as somewhere to go to. So I think that's probably everything that I needed to share. I have rattled through, Julia.
Time has just flown. What an amazing session. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance for breakout rooms, but I think that actually we got a huge value, and the synergy and the energy was actually really lovely to, and it always is, but it was particularly lovely today. So thank you, Tory, because you brought that energy with you, and thank you everybody for being here and for participating. See you soon.
Thank you to both of you. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.